Hi, I'm Todd Clippinger, and welcome to the American Craftsman Workshop. I have a project I want to share with you. It's these French doors that I'm staining and finishing. Now, this isn't a new stain and finish project. I actually stained and finished these doors 6 years ago. And as you look at the picture, you'll see that the door on the right has a lighter brown color, and that was the original finish. Now, the door on the left has a dark reddish brown kind of mahogany color, and we're going to use toning to take it up to that color. Now, I actually already figured the color scheme out and the amount of dye that I need for the door on the left. But I think there's still a lot to be learned. I have to mix up a little bit more dye. I didn't want to waste the opportunity to share some of the knowledge with you. Now, to create toner for this project today, I'm using lacquer thinner and I'm using transient dye. You may wonder about the other dyes out there. Well, to tell you the truth, I use M.L. Campbell's dye, I use Sherwin-Williams dye, and also use the transient dye. I just use whatever is most available on my shelf at the time. They're all widely available for me, and you can use the same as well. And also I have to point out that if you're using chemicals such as lacquer thinner, acetone, xylene, paint thinner, all these chemicals should be handled safely, and you should wear nitrile gloves. The blue nitrile gloves are the ones that are chemically resistant. Latex gloves do not stop chemicals from permeating the skin, and all these things are deposited in your liver and your kidneys. So you want to keep that exposure to a minimum. So let's get started. Now I'm starting off with about 16 ounces of lacquer thinner. And this is important because I know that a pre-catalyzed lacquer was used as the finish on these before, and we're using a pre-catalyzed lacquer today. And I also have already tested, I know what color I need to add, and I also know that the doors can have additional top coats put on and it won't fisheye. If fisheye was going to be a problem due to furniture polish, silicones contaminating the surface, I would have to use shellac or a vinyl sealer that acts as a barrier coat. And you'll have to check with your suppliers for that. So anyways, let's get started. Now, I've got about 16 ounces of straight lacquer thinner. And I also know that I need to create a little bit of a binder effect. So I'm going to add some of the finish. And I got my pressure pot spray gun here. I have the air turned off so it won't atomize and it's going to spray like a squirt gun. And I'm going to add a good shot here, and it will probably be close to 1 to 2 ounces. And basically, I'm creating a very thin down finish. And what that does is creates a little bit of a binder, like I said. And what happens when you spray it on, the lacquer thinner is going to evaporate. It's going to flash out very quickly. It's going to dry almost instantaneously. But you need just a little something in there to create a stick. So now we're going to add our dye. And to be honest with you, I go off of experience a lot. I know the level of shade that I want, and I know I'm just going to give that a shot. Now, you don't want, if you're not very experienced, you want to keep your dyes mixed to the lighter color. You can always add more coats to get the effect that you want, but you don't want it to build too fast. And that's another thing, speaking of build, the lacquer thinner is the primary carrier, and there's just a little bit of the finish to create a stick. But what you don't want is enough finish to create a build, and that's the important thing there. Now what we're going to do today is we're going to add the dye on top of a sealed coat. Now if this was a new project, you'd want to add your stain, then you want to add a seal coat, then you can add your layers of dye, and then you want to add a couple more coats, 2 or 3 coats of your finish, depending on what it is. Now, this project has already been pre-sealed, and that's really all it's going to take to mix up our dye. Now, I have a gravity feed gun, and I'm just going to pour that in there. And put the top on. This door's been prepped and it's ready to go. Now before you spray, don't forget to wear your safety mask. Doesn't matter if you're using solvent-based or water-based. If you atomize it, you're going to breathe it into your lungs. So be sure to wear the mask. Well, let's cover the basics of toning real quick again. We're going to be changing the color on this project, but usually you're probably just going to be intensifying or adding some color. Now the great thing about toning is the project's been sealed. This project was finished 6 years ago, but even if it was a new project, I would still add a seal coat. Now, the great benefit of adding the seal coat and using the toner is the fact that because the surface is sealed, you can add your color without blotching. A lot of times stain, especially on a soft wood like this pine, will blotch. And so that's the great benefit of using a toner, because you're adding on top of a sealed surface and you can add a very even color and it won't blotch. So now this color, we're actually going to completely change it. So I'm going to add several more layers of toner than you would just to add or deepen a color a little bit. Now this allows me to creep up on the color basically. And you want to be careful. The solvents are going to flash out fast. And the color, when it's wet, will appear slightly different than when the solvents cook out of it a little bit. The color will change. And so as I get close, I want to start slowing down and letting it dry a little bit longer, and that way don't overshoot on the color. So let me put my mask on, hook the gun up, and I'll show you my spray pattern, and that way you can get an idea of how to add the toner with the spray gun. Well, I've got the second coat on, and you may wonder how many coats of toner it's going to take. Probably about 6, and that's based on doing the other doors. What you don't see is off to the side, I have a door set up that I have to match this one too. I'm using it as a reference or a gauge to register the color from this one to that. So one thing you also may have noticed is that I didn't tape off the glass. Quite honestly, it's easier just to go ahead, spray the toner, spray the finish. I can scrape the glass with a razor and clean it off faster than if I just taped the whole thing off to begin with. Now, you may, I don't know if you'll be able to notice in the video, but something you may encounter when doing your project, as I spray around this door, I won't necessarily do all of it with the same number of coats. That's because some areas are going to just naturally be lighter due to the character of the wood. If I want to even it out a little more, I can spray heavier here and less over there. So not all the coats are going to be even, because this is not a finish. This is just adding color and tone. And so don't think that you have to have an even layer over the whole thing. So that's some of the principles. Well, now this layer is ready to go, is dry and is ready for another coat. So I'm going to go ahead, put my mask on and hook up my gun and spray some more. Well, as you can see by the reference door in the background, I got a perfect color match in this door, and it's ready for finish. Now, this was a real live project, and I just couldn't pass up the opportunity to use it to pass along the basics of toning to you. Now, the products and formulas you use may be more specific to your needs, but the principles of the basics of toning are still there. So I hope you found this video helpful and informative on toning, and until next time, be safe in your own shop. You would want to stain, you would want to add a sealer coat of finish, and then add your